going to dive into it and just jump into what we're talking about. Let me go ahead and put this on the screen. If you're not familiar, I have been building up, and not alone, mind you. There's been a number of people who've contributed to this. As a matter of fact, it's all contributed. I'll explain it as we go. But we've been building up the, what is now the 18-point Black male political agenda since 2020. So it's been 4 years since we've been developing this. And it is basically a list of policy proposals that Black men themselves have written. I have only done the lightest amount of editing on these in terms of, making sure the grammar is correct to some extent or whatever. I don't think it's egregious, but I didn't go through and, reform the ideas. I wanted it to come through as authentic as it has in terms of the brothers who've written it. So, these are all policy proposals sent in by Black men themselves, right? Shout out to MLR for another super chat. Much appreciated. Supporting Black male media scholars as usual. Thank you. So as you can see, as of February 9th, right, we have the now 18-point Black male political agenda. And this can go up to as many points as relevant. It can go as high as it needs to. It's all about policy ideas that work to advance us. So you can see it's been updated as to February 9th, right? And this is the streamlined list, right, which is hyperlinked. So you can go through that and you can see all of the different components on there. And the ones with the highest number of subpoints, right, are number 1, family court reform, and number 6, criminal law reform and law enforcement, right? But these are the basic components of the 18-point Black male political agenda. And so you can go through all of these and look at what brothers are proposing. And so we're doing this so that, especially during this presidential year, right, when people actually come to us and say, well, what does it take to get the Black vote, Black male vote at that? Well, I've heard for years brothers agreeing that we need to make a serious pivot from just voting Democrat to voting in the interest of our policy interests. But the problem we've had, in my assessment, is we don't really articulate what those policy interests are. You got plenty of people that are doing this in regard to, Black community politics, which is fine. But I do think that as demographics are going to start articulating their own political interests, we've seen this with not only Black women, we've seen this with Black LGBT, so on and so forth. It really hasn't dawned on us, what policies would benefit Black men, right? And so in that, we developed this list so Black men themselves can articulate what kinds of things would be beneficial. And most of these are written by brothers who are going through something related to their proposal, which is what I encourage. And I still encourage it. If you have ideas, please feel free to send them to me. And, as long as we can agree that they're beneficial in some way, and particularly if you can send some data points that highlights why this is important, we can go ahead and add it. So we have these 18 different areas. And shout out to MS Delta. Appreciate the generous support. Says Year of the Dragon, keep spitting fire and knowledge. Real talk. Planning on doing so. Premium Toy Collect. You can download it. It is accessible. I will put the link right now in the chat. If you have any trouble, all you got to do is put in Black male political agenda. It is the only one you're going to find. Now, we did know last year Stacey Abrams had a Black male agenda that we thought was interesting, but all it was it was related to Georgia, is what Democrats were going to do for everybody. So she just targeted it to Black men, that she was trying to secure the Black male vote. And there's no way that you can use Google and put in Black male agenda and not come up with this list. You can download it. I hope you share it, most particularly. And if you're going to cite it or use it in any kind of discussion, please just credit where it came from so we can continue to build. We got 300 watching. Make sure you hit the like button. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, and Twitter, or X, and of course on YouTube. So make sure you support the show. But anyway, you can see. So the last point we were at for the 17-point agenda for the longest was the Black men's rights to self-defense. And again, shout out to Brother Douglas for proposing that. You can read through that and check out what he was talking about. But the latest one to be added is the false accusation offender registry. And these are not long. They're not long. They're written in common tongue, so they're easily accessible. You don't need to have multiple degrees to be able to understand what they're talking about. There's usually data included, but this one is pretty straightforward. But if you have data that you think would be relevant or necessary, or if you just have questions about some data that you think should be in there, feel free to communicate that, and I'll consider adding that. Real quick, too, just so you can kind of see what's going on with it. Hold on. I don't think that made it better. Let me get back to it. All right. So just real quick, I want you to see when you see the bullet points, or I'm sorry, the footnotes, references right there, 13 and 1. You just scroll down a little bit, you can see the contributors. Now, these are the brothers that opted to be named. They were all asked. If you have a policy proposal, but you don't want your name on it, that's absolutely fine. Just request to remain anonymous, and I can put it up here. So you do have anonymous points added to this agenda where the creators of it did not want to be named. Shout out to Dark Power for the support on the Cash App. Appreciate that. Also, shout out to Guy for the support. Says he has a new point. Okay, mandatory minimum fines for banks found guilty of discriminatory practices against any racial group. Let's start at $100 million. Interesting. Okay. Definitely have to return to that one. Appreciate that. Hey, if you can email it to me, hassan.johnson@gmail.com. Please go ahead and do that. That's the easiest way. That way I can have it in writing, because I don't want to misremember what you're proposing or misunderstand it or something of that nature. So I try to keep it in the tongue that you wrote it in. But as you can see, these are the brothers that have contributed and wanted to be acknowledged, or at least submitted to being acknowledged. So working backward from the bottom, Carnell Smith, who I've had on the show, shout out to Carnell, made some proposals. We got Douglas, who we're going to be looking at his proposal today. Lamont, AAI, irvineP made an interesting proposal earlier in there. Charles, Officer Faulkner, regular of the show. You should all know Dennis Sperling. Shout out to Dennis. Chief in the South, Brian, Tristan, Stewart, David, Adam was another friend of the show. I haven't seen him in a minute, but I hope he's well. And of course, BGS Idmore.
I'm going to pause it right there before we get back into it. But welcome back to Breakdown Friday. I'm Joseph Ward, Professor Carl, Tone Jones, Patrick Irvin. And today we have the privilege of diving into and breaking down Dr. T. Hassan Johnson's Black Male Political Agenda, the new 18-point Black Male Political Agenda. And I stopped it right there because these are 14 of the contributors to the Black Male Agenda, like Dr. T. Hassan Johnson said, that wanted to be acknowledged. So Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, these men, and a host of other men have contributed to this Black Male Political Agenda. And it's about time. It's about time that we have something like this for Black men, giving us a foundation, some legs to stand on, but something to use to spur us forward, and it gives us a foundation. It gives us room. It gives us a pathway to move forward as men, and what we want to do, what we need to do, why we need to do it, so we can get to fixing things in our community. But also, it's a focus on Black men. It's an actual focus on Black men, and this Black men focusing on Black men. But also, we're coming to the proverbial table with a plan of action, with the Black Male Political Agenda. And we're actually going to be diving into this Black Male Political Agenda. Of course, it's 18 points. We're not going to get into all 18 points today. Of course, we can do an overview of all 18 points. We're not going to be able to dive deep into it, but we are going to get into this Black Male Political Agenda because I've been wanting to do this for a while, and the time is now. So before we get into it, remember to like this video, comment, subscribe, share. Make sure as many people, seriously with this video, with all our videos, but make sure as many people and as many men as possible get to see this video, get to see this breakdown. Make sure you all visit Dr. T. Hassan Johnson's website. If you just type in Black Male Political Agenda, type in Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, Hassan Johnson, T. Hassan Johnson, Black Male Political Agenda. Type it in Google, it'll come up. And like you said, you can actually download this political agenda, but it's accessible, and it's something that all Black men need to have access to and go through. And as you can hear, he's saying you can contribute to it. So make sure you check that out. And I want to give a shout out to Gary Hall. Thank you, Gary Hall, for the Cash App. I appreciate you. I appreciate all the support that everybody gives me. So a special shout out to Mr. Gary Hall for the Cash App. So I want to start with this question here. PC, why is it important for Black men to have our own political agenda?
Well, I mean, to be succinct, Black men have been the most warred upon demographic since the institution of chattel slavery.
Mm-hmm.
So the war has not stopped on destroying not just the physical essence of Black men, but the but our public image and socially, economically. And I think that for the most part, it's time. Every other group, every other demographic has created a list or prioritized their specific needs. And I think it's telling that, especially in our community, when it's up to Black women, when it comes to supporting Black women, whether it's politically or otherwise, everybody is expected to jump on board. And the biggest cheerleaders in most cases are Black men in regards to being supportive. How many times have you heard Black men saying things like, it's important that we show respect and honor to our women. The women are the backbone of the community, and things of that nature. And I think this interesting because even in policies or political agendas that are damaging to Black men, if as long as it's seen as something that pushes Black women forward, then it's a lot of brothers will suffer the indignity, or they will suffer, they will willfully accept, or won't even acknowledge the sacrifices that we'll have to make in order to make that push forward.
Right.
Other groups have come in and created slush funds for Black women particularly.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have a problem, and I don't have a problem with that if it wasn't for the types of things that happen on the other end of that, which is these are things that are typically used as shaming tactics towards Black men for not being able to obtain those gains for themselves. And often put, I find it ironic that Black men get juxtaposed into this flat maleness. Shout out to Tia San Johnson for coming up with that term, for, in terms of actually getting all the benefits of men, when we know that Black men do not get the same benefits of gains, or nearly the same benefits of gains, of white men who are the standard bearers in Western society. So I find it rich that it's assumed that just because we share the same types of genitals, that
Get the same privileges.
That we get the same privileges, we get the same perks, we get the same status. When, if you just look at the social political landscape over the last 20, 30 years, you can go back to the Rodney King incident and just keep moving forward in terms of the public annihilation and humiliation of Black men at the hands of other white men in society, and so forth. The lack of protections for Black men. It's time. And like I said, I think it's rich because when we talk to our sisters, they get to identify as a double minority. They don't get put in the category of flat female, as one flat woman, like one group of women. They identify as also one of the things that's used to discriminate against them is the fact that they are black. So,
Same thing with us.
right. Well, but we don't get that privilege, and
Right.
we don't, and so, um, and even still, you just go back to the last presidential election when uh, black men were told that since the choice of the community, the choice of the sisterhood was not validated by us, which, you know, the numbers didn't say that, but anyway, that many members of our community wished death on black men at the hands of white police officers, uh, white vigilantes, and so forth. I think that all those things taken into consideration, plus a numerous amount of others, has created the circumstances where black men understand that we need to save ourselves. So that
That's
that's
why
why
SPM.
I mean that's why SBM, right? Save yourself, black men. And this is in this particular policy, we're not only looking out for black men now, but looking out for the future of black men. So
But not only the future of black men, but black men saving ourselves, we ultimately save our community.
yeah. I mean, that goes hand in hand. So the policies that were put together by that 18-point agenda, and I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year it's in the 20s,
Expanded, yeah.
because the brainstorming and the academic research that's been put in, and I mean every one of those points speaks to an area that we need political agendas for.
Yeah.
So with that, I'll land because I know we want to hear from Pat as well on this particular topic.
It's about time we stand up. It's about time we have a voice. It's about time we have legs to actually stand on. Black men need to be in the position of power. Black men, we have to have some kind of positions of power. We have to have some kind of leverage. We have to have some kind of resources to be able to navigate the world that we're in. We understand that this world is a dog eat dog world at the end of the day. Like, take away the fairy dust, take away the curtains, take away the smoking screen, take away the Hollywood set, take away all that. Like, it's a dog eat dog world, and whoever is powerless is going to get stepped on. That's why black men are looked at the way we're looked at. We're in the position we're in. We're talked about the way we're talked about. We're not respected by even our own women and or children. So it's time for us to get ourselves up, to pick each other up and stand up. And this is a great start. Shout out to Dr. Tia Son Johnson and all of the contributors. Pat, in your opinion, from your life experiences, from your adult experiences, professional experiences, why would you say this black man political agenda is needed?
Well, it's needed for all the reasons that have been illustrated by PC and in the short clip by Dr. Johnson. I will say nobody's above the smoke, though. I disagree
With what?
because I disagree with everybody. Um, I disagree with him because when he said that you can't Google black male agenda and not come up with the list, I Googled black male agenda and the list did not come up. So let me start there. I mean, it showed up on page 2, but I had to go all the way to page 2.
That's your grievance.
Who's going to page 2 for Google? You know what I'm saying? Like it's not, it ain't right. Secondly, it's on WordPress. That might be why it's on page 2. Hey, Dr. Johnson, I know a guy that knows a guy. You know what I'm saying? We can get you off WordPress. All right. So all that being said, um, I also disagree. Some of them agendas ain't black male agendas. They are in general good people agendas. And I don't want no in general good people agendas when I'm talking about black males. I want black male specifics. All right.
Okay.
Now that I've made sure that nobody can say that I don't give everybody the same energy. Um, I think it's important. Like I've been through, like I read through because the list was first published a few years ago, I think I saw. And I can't remember when the first time I saw it was, but I have seen it before this show. So, and one of the points that I thought was interesting when I first read through the list was the points that spoke specifically to the challenges that black males face when entering into the realm of fatherhood. And of course, that resonated with me deeply, being somebody that has been a single male or a single father with my three boys for a period of time, and then has had to maneuver in that space. It's those challenges that you face as a male working through the system, particularly as a black male, trying to get some of the same benefits that they literally like thrust at black women or at women
Mhm.
in general, period. Um, it is amazing. Like even stuff like WIC, like women, infant, and children, they mean that. Like they mean that.
Mhm.
Um, my boys could get WIC, but I couldn't.
That's crazy.
And you don't think about stuff like that until you're in that situation where you're like, there was a situation where I'm talking to a young lady at the time who was in similar circumstances to me, but she got more assistance than I did on the WIC program at the time because she was a woman and I was a man. So she got assistance for her. I only got assistance for my children. And this ain't no theoretical, speculative shit. Like this is like a real world situation that happened to me. Uh, roughly about 15, 16, about roughly 15 years ago. So you look at situations like that, and it's like it was mind blowing at the time. You mean to tell me because I have a phallus, I can't get particular types of aid?
That's crazy.
So, I'm thinking about there was a situation where I was applying for food stamps because your boy wasn't always doing what he doing. You feel me? And
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. I was gonna ask you that question about food stamps.
yeah, so when the first time I applied for food stamps with my boys, first off, the interaction I had with the person doing taking the application, calling me back for more information, the caseworker or the case manager or whatever. Um, it was a very hostile interaction. The interaction was tinged with a tint of like you broke lazy nigga. Excuse my language. Like, but like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you go get a job? And then the conversation shifted to, where's their mother? And it wasn't on the standpoint of deadbeat mom by my mom. It was on the standpoint of, did you abduct your kids? Like,
Right.
do you have legal custody of your children? Well, yes. Like, what? Why wouldn't I have legal custody? Who's running around stealing children for food stamps?
And they literally asked you that?
Yes. And it wasn't just being asked the question. I can understand tonation if you're asking the question because you have to ask the question. Cool, whatever. I understand forums got all kinds of dumb questions on them. And they might not be dumb, generally speaking. We understand each one of those questions serves a purpose. But as somebody being asked the question, we relegate certain questions as dumb because they don't apply to us or anybody we know. And from that standpoint, I didn't know anybody that was kidnapping children to apply for food stamps. Not no man, anyways. So, but the tonation behind the question was very disrespectful, and I remember that. Even though we're talking about uh, well over 10 years ago now. Well over 10 years ago. We're eking we're on the other side of, yeah. So I still remember the tonation of it and the disrespect dripping off of the phrasing of it as she said what she said to me. And just the oozing disrespect throughout the conversation because here I am, a man applying for benefits. So those types of things. And then when I got benefits, and I don't know how the system works now, but I know back then there was a formula for it. And so when I finally got benefits, even the benefits I received were reduced. They were less than the benefits that some of the females that I knew that were in similar situations to me with that they were getting. So even understanding that, so and these are all headaches that even when I presented these to the people that I was talking to at the time, my support structures at the time, various ones, not all of them, some of them were understanding, but there was still
Mhm.
a tinge of, well, I don't understand why you need help anyways. You're a man. Why don't you just
Right,
go get a job?
right. And
So
the idea is supposed to be support for parents, period.
yes, right. So there's so I definitely for on a personal level, like there needs to be some sort of recourse. Like PC brought up the double minority narrative, and that's something that while logically I understand from the narrative that is presented from, when you look at it in terms of real world perspective, it doesn't make sense. Not saying that black women shouldn't be a double minority, but I am saying that I don't understand how, when you look at impact, black women are given such a major leg up and black men are not. And it's
Right,
not even to dismantle or to disregard the challenges and things that black women go through, but it is to say that there's a lot of similarities between the challenges of being a black man and a black woman because we're black, but there
mhm,
is a big gap in terms of the assistance available simply because one is and so then you get into this whole conversation about intersectionality and the actual impact of labels. Like we understand that in general white men have an advantage over everybody else, but being a man has less of an impact on your life than being black does. So we have these sorts of things at play too, because I know white women wouldn't want to be a black dude either. They perfectly fine being white
right,
women.
right.
So I like there's a very real need for a black male agenda. And so that goes into like the joke I made. I made my comments in jest, although I meant it so that, because of course I don't want nobody saying that I come differently for people that I agree with, even though logically, of course, I come different at people I agree with. I agree with them. But anyways, um, I do I do think black men right now we're still stuck in that mode of what's good for the community is okay enough for us.
That's why
And
this, yes, speak on it. Speak on it.
and we definitely got to transition out of that mindset and into especially if we're talking about politically. Because
Yes.
I remember when we were having conversations about this years back, I remember wondering to myself, well, what does an agenda specifically made for black men look like? I was having trouble divorcing myself as a black man from my concept of the black community enough to where I could
Right.
identify specific things for me as a black man. Everything that I was thinking of was things that would benefit the community as a whole. And I think the majority of black men operate in that space. We're
Mhm,
okay with
mhm,
taking the L if it provides a
mhm.
W for the community. And we're in a time now in 2024, 2025, where we got to transition out of that space and
What?
into a space where we're looking at
Right.
us as our own demographic, and
Right.
that's hurtful. It's difficult for us to do, but we also have to acknowledge that we're in a world that is being dictated by the smallest group, the smallest label group that you're affiliated with. Black women disassociated themselves politically. This last election
Mhm.
showcased that. A lot of them will argue about it, they'll fight about it because they don't want us to disassociate in the same way. They view it as divisive. It's cool when you do it, it's a problem when I do it. That whole narrative. But I think we're in this place now where we got to figure out how to be in community with people when it's time to be in a social community with them, but also to be able to identify our own agenda when it's time to engage on that political level. And that's
Yes.
the line that we got to figure out how to toe as a community.
Well, black men have been bastardized have been propagandized against. We've been stepped on, spit on, shit on. Like, we've been drugged through the mud since we've came to this land. Like, we've been, of course, black men have been the enemy, the number one target. But it's like, we have issues. Black men have issues. Black men have problems. And we are going to have to solve our own problems. And like I said earlier, I believe if we're going to actually save the community in the long run, black men are going to have to save ourselves. And we're going to have to save ourselves so we can actually take our community back and take back more control and more leadership positions in the community, and have more of a voice, or a more powerful voice in the community, and steer our community back to where we need to go. But black men, I believe black men are going to have to do that. And I'm not saying this political agenda is going to make black men stand up, but it's a great start for black men to drop our nuts. We got to drop our nuts at some point. We got to drop our nuts and do something different. As men, we are seen as children. We're seen as the less than men because we never stand up for ourselves. This gives us at least some kind of foundation to stand up for ourselves and to move more towards self-actualization as a people or something. I mean, we got to start somewhere, but it has to start with the men. And black men, we can no longer be doormats for the community. We can no longer just go along and just get along. Like, they keep telling us to just get in line, especially politically. Just shut up and get in line and just do what black women are doing. No, we're not doing that, because that overshadows our issues. All of our issues get swept up under the rug, and we're just supposed to be like what? Remember that conversation we was having, Pat, with the young lady, and she told us we just need to be quiet and just take it. Like,
Never forget it.
That's the ideal for black men, is to shut up, fall in line, and take whatever is happening. Oh, but on the other side, we don't want y'all dying too early. We want y'all to be as healthy as possible, but we're gonna ignore everything going on with you, because everything else is more important, instead of the community being able to look at both black male and black female issues. Majority of the community, majority of the country focus on black women issues. And
Well,
that's why it's important.
That we live in a black the black community is a matrifocal society. Women are centered. Big
Right.
Mama is centered. So, I mean, I had the same fight, as Pat. We do it for Mama, So everything we do, we sacrifice. And what do people say, like athletes? When I make it big, I'm gonna go buy my mama a house. Our focus is on the most imposing figure in our lives, which is in our community has been black women, and so there needs to be a shift, because men build nations. Men build nations. We build it so much that you can name the amount of times that the women have actually built a nation, or been identified as the leaders of nations. So if you can name them all, that means that it's because those are exceptions to the rule.
Right.
And I think men have to be uncompromising and unapologetic about black men, about pushing forth, regardless of the criticism. As Kevin Samuels once said, and BGS Itmore said, we have got to get out of this whole simp chip that gets activated every time the women use sign language, the shame and the insults, the guilt and the need to be right. And I'll tell you like this, I think beyond nation building, black men need to do it for ourselves, because at this point there is no nation. We're just a collection of people. We don't move like the nation. We don't have more ways and folkways like a nation right now. People are still searching for that identity, trying to find that identifying marker. But you have to have cooperation from both sides. And if you have a situation where the women don't respect the men, which is greatly, it's not even a myth. It's not even a stereotype. This is what you see. I mean, you can see with the way some fathers have been talked about by their daughters publicly recently. And I'm not going to state no names, but I'm just saying, it's this thing where it's about a lack of respect, period, in regards to, I mean, I've dealt with that. Little girls in the 6th and 7th grade trying to use that mothering tone on me. One little girl looked at me and said, "Listen," and she looked me up and down. I had to catch myself because I almost snatched the soul out of her body, because I just had to remind her who she was talking to. And so we as black men, we need to start, like you said, Joe, we need to drop our nuts. I think some brothers need to look down and see if they still got nuts. But for those of us who do, we need to let our nuts hang on this and be unapologetic and uncompromising in regards to this push forward as we push to create this. I was on that conference. I was on a similar call. I know, Pat, you was on the call years ago. I remind people from Urban Intellectuals, when one of the sisters on the call said, if we can't get black men the way we want them to, then we rather the community burn. Hence, you've seen memes since the election of black women sitting on rooftops drinking tea while the world burns around them. So this is about operating in a system that's trying to control you. And I think the biggest thing that I got from Pat's response in regards to his situation as a single father, and it's one I can relate to, because while I have birthed no children of my own, I am a caretaker for my brother who's very special needs. So I serve the father's role in his life because I am his primary caretaker. And so prior to, this recording, I had to prepare a meal, to make sure that he's, and it's just part of the process. But the disdain that you receive when you're on the phone trying to obtain resources as a man, when you go into these other places, and specifically, when it all fell on me and I didn't have access to employment like I do now, what I'm saying, or had access to opportunities, because as you know, Black nationalist community, black men are rarely supported by the community. So we do things on the muscle, but going into certain places, the electric company, the gas company, and trying to negotiate for assistance, things of that nature, for the dismissive tones that you receive, for the fact that it's like we want to see you fail. It's not even it was done with such a disdain. In fact, I will tell you, the only time I received any assistance, whether it be the gas company, the electric company, or whatever, is when I actually got in touch with a brother.
Well, we gotta look out for each other, right?
Right. So those black men said, "Hey, brother, let me tell you how to do this." One black man said, like, full transparency, sometime during the pandemic, I had a issue with one of my utilities. I went through about 10 different women from all nationalities trying to seek assistance. They pushed me so far down the ledge that I lost access to my electricity, only to find out when a brother had called me 2 days later. He stated that, "Listen, brother, I'm here to issue a public apology from the electric company because you did make an agreement. And during that agreement, anything that you agreed to during the agreement resets your billing process." But that happened only because the brother looked out. And a lot of black, and what I find is we don't get grace. And the first thing you see in a response to this is the vitriol, the hatred that our opposite gender have for us, because all they hear is, it's like a competition, and everything with black men is a competition for black women. Instead of saying, We understand what you're going through. We know you're the one that's been warred on. That we know that our enemy oftentimes lobs us assist just to make sure that we maintain an imbalance in regards to power within the community and so forth. Many will often show their lack of sympathy and empathy for our situations and struggles.
Well,
And anytime, I'll say this too, anytime professionally, I've had to deal with some issues, oftentimes the roots were Black women. Black women were the roots in terms of the difficulties that I've had in public sectors or employment or other ways. Now, I'm not saying all, because I got some solid sisters that rock with me, but I'm saying it shouldn't be any.
yeah, right. But also coming with the understanding that the system was literally designed for Black men not to win. We are the silhouette in the crosshairs. Believe that. So get into this agenda. Now, like I said, we're not going to get into the whole thing. Of course, we don't have time to get to the whole thing, but let's get into it a bit, right? And it says, you can go to newblackmasculinities.com to find the 18-point Black male political agenda, newblackmasculinities.com. And says, the Black male political agenda is a living document that continues to be augmented with policy ideas from mostly Black men designed solely to improve the quality of life for Black males across age, class, and income, geography, occupation, sexuality, and color. It contains policy ideas that are state-based, federal, and or both. The ideas proposed here unapologetically identify the target audience when drafted into policy. Black males, it should be made clear that these policies are not designed for those normally deferred to when politicians try to deflect from giving Black men resources, using words such as people of color or poor, etc. And so let's just go over real quick. So 18 points is, as you can see on the screen, family court reform, education, affirmative action for Black men, targeted homelessness programs, targeted unemployment programs, criminal law reform and law enforcement, intimate partner violence, homicide policy reform, health, targeted treatment and recognition for heart disease, cancer, suicide, and HIV, targeted small business support, social security and life insurance, family support, paternity leave, reverse voter disenfranchisement, Black male specific reparations for the transatlantic slave trade through the 21st century, hyper incarceration, the United Nations, we charge the U.S. with genocide of the Black male, Title 7 reform, data disaggregation, Black men's rights to self-defense and false accusation offender registry. And so those are the 18 points. The first one, family court reform. That's, it's getting into the area where you guys were talking about. It's not necessarily all of it, but it's in the wheelhouse of the family court reform, but it's also in the wheelhouse of how Black men are railroaded in the family court system, in the child welfare system. Basically, anything that has to do with mothers and children, fathers are often railroaded in these systems. Pat talked about them looking at him as if he stole his own kids, as if it was no way that the mother may not have been in the best position to raise the children at the time. And that's crazy. That's crazy that something like that has happened, but it continuously happens. So family court reform, hold on, let me scroll. So family court reform. Family's court treatment of Black men has unfairly and drastically diminished Black men and boys' quality of life by privileging women as the primary caretakers. That's what we was talking about earlier. It's privileged women as being the primary caretakers or caregivers. And, I remember having a conversation with some women that I work with, and I've never been married, and in my mind, I don't want to get divorced, right? But in the conversation, I was saying, if I was to ever get divorced, I would want to take my children and I want to raise my children. And all the women at the office looked at me like something was wrong with me. And I was like, well, why y'all looking at me like that? It was like, well, why would you take the kids from the mother? And my response is, well, why would you take the kids from the father? And their response is, well, because she's the mother. And I was like, well, I'm the father. The idea is the mother is the superior parent. So since the mother is the superior parent, the mother will always get the preferred treatment and be preferred as the custodial parent of the children, because the idea is the mother is the better parent, even though statistics show otherwise. But no matter of all of that, the black male is still going to be railroaded in this, and that's messed up. So I'm glad this is on this black male political agenda, because it has to be addressed, and it has the most sub points. So that's how you know it's a real issue, because it has 17 sub points. No other point on this have that many sub points. So
Yeah, I think the next one is 12.
right,
Right.
number 6. Yeah.
And I think that one can be a show all by itself, that sub
Right.
point, because it's one of those. I know when we use the term female privilege, people start to squinch up their face and well, how would you feel if we use the term black privilege? And I'd be like, well, I mean, unless you talking about the ability to use the word nigga,
Right.
I don't really get it. But when we start talking about female privilege, this is one of those things where it's like, all right, this is a clear narrative
Mm-hmm.
that the woman is the primary parent,
Mm-hmm.
regardless. Like, it doesn't, like, she goes in with that belief and that understanding, that to the point where even information that is typically deemed as information that a female would know is superior to the information that a father would know. For instance, a father might know what his child's favorite joke is, or what his child's deepest, darkest secrets are in terms of like fears, fantasies, things like that. A father might know those things, but a father might not know the contact information for memorized for his child's physician, his child's
Right.
primary care provider. A mother does.
Right.
So, and then we're just talking about narratively, because we understand there are a lot of fathers that do know that information, but that narrative. And so
And the
we say,
idea.
well, one of these things is a direct line into the emotional status, the emotional place, the emotional center, and heartfelt beliefs of a child. And the other one is somebody that renders medical services. But we'll say, well, the mother, the stuff that the dad knows, like that stuff don't matter. It doesn't
Right.
matter that he knows his child's favorite joker. He knows his child's favorite deepest fears, or he knows these
Right.
sorts of intimate, deep details about a child. That doesn't matter because he doesn't know who renders medical services. He doesn't know how to directly contact that person in terms of having that memorized. So you
Yeah.
see that sort of thing as well when you start talking about the narratives created between men and women and primary parent versus custodial parent, and just how deep that narrative goes, because it's a lot deeper than the child should be with the mother.
A Robotron.
Yeah,
Being
man.
totally disregarded and
Say that part again, Pat.
Yeah,
You
you
lost you for a few
you
seconds. Say that
sound
part
like
again.
Optimus Prime. Yeah. But
oh
no,
shit.
but now
Um, y'all got the gist of it though, right?
yes. But the piggyback off what you're saying, right? So I had a conversation with a young lady, and probably at work, and we were talking about just that, like the different roles that the mother and the father play, but the different things that the mother and the father pay attention to. And the young lady was putting a level of importance. So basically, the father doesn't know the name of the teachers. Oh, so what? That's the if I sit, so because my example was, okay, so The father doesn't know the name of the teacher, but the father sits down with the child every night to make sure the child get their homework completed. Which one is more important? But the idea is, because you don't know the teacher's name, or because men don't pay attention to the things that women pay attention to, then men are not adequate parents. But the statistics show otherwise. The results show otherwise. We're not here to make people feel good about themselves. I thought we were here to raise competent children. If this is a pissing match, let me know. But if we're here to raise competent children, I need both of us to be adults and realize that, hey, you might pay attention to the left hand and I might pay attention to the right hand. But last I checked, bodies have two hands.
Well, in addition to that, Joe, but you and you touched on it, this need for competition.
Yeah.
There's need to be competitive in a situation when you're supposed to be cooperative. And so the legal system plays into that. It plays into the and so when you look at terms, not just the child custody part, right? But we talk about the fines and the violations, right? We talk about the hoops and hurdles. Like when you switch the positions, when women are the ones that have to pay child support, they're never pulled into court for violation of the order. They never go to jail. They're never made to pay the child support. The men have to pay, and specifically the brothers. So when we look at the need to create policy around it, it's because the protections are not there for Black men.
Yes.
And so when we have, and I think this is an important first step.
Yep.
Because it's the first of its kind in regards to identifying just the needs of Black men. Because as before, and as it's been illustrated, and it was funny, right? Because a lot of this came to the forefront when Ice Cube was pushing.
That political his contract with Black America. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he went on the Fox Soul channel, and I believe it's the Queens of Soul or something like that.
Vivica Fox, Claudia Jordan, Selena Johnson, and somebody else.
Yeah, Diamond from Players Club. What is her name?
That's Lisa. Lisa Ray. Yeah, Lisa Ray.
So, and on that particular episode, when they went over the agenda, the first thing they said, well, you talk about Black people, for what about Black women? Yeah. And he said, well, you're Black too. Black women are included in Black people, so don't count yourselves out. But the outrage that excuse me, the outrage that was generated from that, led to a lot of Black women say they need to have an agenda separate from Black men, which is something that we already saw happening. Goldman and Sachs had created a business agenda, giving $10 billion out to Black women to start businesses right after the pandemic. But, nothing was put in place for Black men. This is why we have Black men, save yourself, Black men, because nobody's coming to rescue or protect us. But Dr. Johnson also coined the phrase, the Black masculinist turn. And it was this was one of the turns in which the Black masculinist turns, if I'm getting it wrong, and Doc, I know you watch the show, so just let me know, is a time in history where something happens that's so eye-opening that it creates a chasm or a mark in time where Black men shift and move in a different direction. And this is one of the things people don't understand, but this is one of the things, as well as the celebration of the death of Kevin Samuels, that led to the Passport Bros. You know what I'm saying? But also, it also created the need to have an agenda like this put in place, because if we're going to do something where Black women are identifying themselves outside of the realm of Black people for, specifics, then it's time that as Black men,
we have to protect ourselves.
We protect ourselves, promote ourselves, and only look for building for ourselves. Too many times, everything we build is to make sure it's for the betterment of everybody around us. And I think that we get drowned in that notion because like the conversation you were having earlier, the point you were making earlier, Joe. The women were saying, you know, black men just live long enough for us to continue to use you. You
Yeah,
know,
like we just tools.
utility, and that's the only purpose we serve: utility and battering rams.
This agenda helps prevent us from being expendables.
Right, and it's us taking initiative, you know. And shout out to the brothers that have contributed. I've looked over the list a few times because I'm trying to see if I can come up with another point to add. You know what I'm saying? And that's going to take a brainstorming session. But I think that we can possibly, because this list is just the beginning. This is in the infancy stages of the things that have come. But the important thing about this now is that this agenda is started to become a mainstream topic of discussion. And this is one of the reasons why Kamala Harris came out during her presidential run and stated that we need to make sure we don't forget black men. Now, the things that they threw in, like you said before, similar to the woman out in Georgia, the similar things that they put in place, it was basically they just took things that were already on the agenda and put the term and put it was for black men.
Yeah.
You know,
Bullshit.
but yeah, exactly. So, but this agenda is created a situation where they're trying to create a counter narrative, one that they can control. So the brilliance behind this is these topics are, while all men might benefit from it, these are named specifically for black men.
Yeah, and black men should get behind this. And in my opinion, if you consider yourself a black man and you're not getting behind this, you might not be a black man. Why wouldn't we advocate for ourselves? How can we save somebody else if we can't save ourselves? How are we supposed to be? Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, because we talked about that earlier. People are going to view this list as being divisive. People are going to view this list all kinds of negative lights. And then there is that large contingent, the majority of black men do see themselves only as utilities for black women. Like that is a worldview, a self perspective that we have come to agree and accept fully, that our role is that of utility, specifically for black women. So I think those are things that we're going to have to address and really start to work on in terms of the culture of what it means to be a black male, because those things are going to be getting in the way, because this is a push to differentiate ourselves as human beings instead of as tools.
Right.
And there are going to be a number of black men, I would say the majority of black men, that are so comfortable with the idea of being a tool that they don't want to accept the responsibility of being human.
That's 78%.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, but
right.
I'm gonna say it earlier, say it again. We're gonna have to drop our nuts at some time. At some point, we have to stand up for ourselves. Like we can't continue to take, and I'm gonna just say it, feminine stances towards uplifting ourselves, towards protecting ourselves, toward making things better for black men, for our community, for our children. Like, how are we going to protect our children if we can't protect ourselves? How are we going to protect our children if we can't be in their lives? If they have all of these state and federal sanction things that are supported, that are directly working against us, and we're not fighting back, we can't properly raise our children if the court system won't even allow us to be fathers. If the women that we are making babies with not even going to allow you to be a father. But even in that, we have to take you in, put our arm around you, and teach you not to do something like that again as well. Because we got to make better decisions with the women that we making babies with as well. But when something bad happens, we still need protection.
Well, let's be clear about that too. That is a minority of the black male community.
But it affects the majority.
It does. You know. And in addition to that, Joe, I think one of the things we also need to make clear too is that as brothers, sometimes we have to because they're going to be grifters. They're going to be those who are panderers, who see this as an opportunity to profit off of, well, if all these brothers are over here, then all the ladies will be, I can get all the ladies access to the ladies. And so there's going to be that group. That group is out there. We know that group is out there. But that can't be the thing that hankers us down in regards to our push forward. Because those situations are small change in concerns in terms of what we're trying to build with big bills. And that was bars, by the way, y'all, bars. So the things that we should continue to push forward, like you're doing with this show, is spreading the awareness of the fact that the agenda is out there. A lot of people know, but when you have a platform as big as yours to bring this forward, it aids and assists. And because we're focused on the brothers that's going to rock with us.
Right. And I just want to say that, hey man, y'all subscribe to Dr. Tia Johnson's channel. Y'all, this man be putting out some excellent content. Y'all go over there and subscribe, because black men, we can't WNBA this. We can't do like the women do with the WNBA and cry about it and don't support it, and cry about it and don't show up.
Exactly.
So we're gonna show up for this like we show up for sports and everything else you like, right? Can't WNBA this.
Well, these are the liberating times we talk where we read about that. People say, man, if I was there, I would have done this.
Well, here you are.
I wish I was there. I wish I was around them in those times. I would have been doing this. And the time is right now. It's in your face right now, and you have an opportunity
to help push this, to help be a part of this. Like, you can help contribute to it, help push it, like all these things. Like, this is not just in support of Dr. Tia Johnson. This is in support of black men in America who's serious about changing and fixing our situation and making our community better and making things better for black men in the future. This is for us. This is for our community. This is for the black America in the long run. But we got to focus on ourselves right now.
Yeah, and this is about ownership.
Right.
Own your future.
Right. Pat, you got any last words, my brother?
The word last.
There you go. Somebody got to say it. Somebody got to say it, man. FetLifeStation.com. You already know what it is. If you're not going to FetLifeStation.com, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. You probably don't need to support this agenda if you don't go to FetLifeStation.com. I don't know what to tell you, but thepax.org. Make sure you check it out. Thepax.org. Newblackmasculinities.com for the 18-point Black male agenda. Newblackmasculinities.com, or just type in Dr. Tia Johnson 18-point Black male agenda. OnTheShoulders1.com. Thank you to everybody who continues to support me. All the links to support all three of us is in the description. And just keep rocking with us. Keep helping us push this forward, because we're going to grow and we're going to go to the moon, and we're going to do big things. We're doing huge things, and we're going to make our community better. Love y'all. Catch y'all next time.